Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today, we will be presenting GIGAWATT, an auction and trading board game designed by Milo van Holsteijn and Wouter Vink, and illustrated by Yvonne Mak. The game hasn't been released yet, but it will be launched on Kickstarter on the 1st of March, 2022. The goal of the game is to be the first region to close down all your coal and gas power plants, while you are able to produce enough electricity to cover the gigawatt demand of your region. It is a 1 to 6 player game, suitable for anyone over 12, and has a length of 60 to 120 minutes, depending on the number of players. Let's see what GIGAWATT is about. Let's begin with the game preparation. First, place the board in the center of the table. Then, place the game step marker next to the icons that represent the steps of a round. Shuffle the technology cards and the CO2 tax cards together, and create a pile face down next to the board. Place 4 cards face up on the assigned spaces on the board. If one of the CO2 tax cards is drawn, move it to a discard pile and draw another card. Group the power plants by type, and put them next to the board, creating a supply. Place the connectors next to them. There are 2 types of gigawatt tokens. Separate the green, or surplus cubes, from the red, or shortage cubes, and place them in an area within all players' reach. Divide the money by value, and place the wads next to the board, creating a supply. Then, choose the starting player. In this case, it would be the most energetic person of the group. Give a spare battery you have at home to that player. It will be the starting player marker. Beginning with the starting player, and continuing clockwise, players choose a region of the map, as long as all of the chosen regions are connected. Players must place 1 Generation 1 gas plant, and 3 Generation 1 coal plants on the top 4 building fields of their region. The remaining regions will become external markets. Roll the external market die for each region. Place the outcome, either 5 red gigawatt tokens, or 5 green gigawatt tokens on them. The starting position of the player's demand and production pawns is 15. Last but not least, give each player 15 starting money and the cheat sheet matching their region. To cover this tutorial, we are using a prototype of the game. Therefore, the components you see, or even some of the rules, are subject to change in the final version of the game. Now, we will be ready to start playing. The game is played over a series of rounds, until a player meets the winning conditions. Rounds consist of 5 steps, and all of them are taken by every player, one at a time, in clockwise order, and beginning with the starting player. The first step is buying technology cards. You can either buy one of the 4 technology cards available by paying its cost, or pass. If you decide to buy, move the remaining cards to the right, to fill the empty space. Then, draw a new card from the deck, and place it face up on the space created on the left. Technology cards have an action that will normally help you. There are 2 icons on the bottom left of the card. The one on the left represents the technology affected, or the step in which the card can be played, and the one on the right, if the card can be used once or several times. Finally, the cost to buy the technology card is always specified on the bottom right. Keep your active technology cards face up in front of you. If the card can only be played once, it must be discarded after it has been used. When everyone has bought a card or passed, remove the first card from the right, and refill the market. When one of the CO2 tax cards is drawn, all the players have to pay the indicated costs for each of their starting power plants, according to the phase they are in. Check the demand pawn to know it. Depending on your demand, you will be in one of the following phases. Then, leave the CO2 tax card on the discard pile, and reveal a new technology card. If another CO2 tax card is drawn in the same round, no costs have to be paid, and it is immediately discarded. The second step is building. You can do any or all of the following actions. If you decide to build a power plant, you can build as many as you want, as long as you have enough money to pay them. When building a new power plant, place it on one of the building fields of your region. pay the costs indicated on the cheat sheet, and move your production pawn forward, the indicated number of gigawatts on the production track. You can only build generation 2 or 3 power plants if your demand pawn is anywhere in those phases. But you can always build power plants from previous generations. There are different types of building fields. Empty building fields where you can build any power plant at its original cost. Fields for which you have to pay an extra 1, 2, 3, or 4, regardless of the type of power plant you are building. And building fields on which you can only build specific power plants. Apart from this, due to geographical features, each region has their own discounts on a particular type of power plant. If your demand pawn is in phase 2 or 3, you can also upgrade your power plants from earlier generations. The cost of upgrading them is the difference between the two generations. Another option is to build a storage facility. They allow you to store a surplus of green gigawatt tokens. Hydro and gas plants have a similar function, but they can store both green or red gigawatt tokens. To build or upgrade your storage facilities, follow the same procedures as power plants. However, they do not have a gigawatt production. Connections on the board are used to trade your gigawatt tokens with other regions. Every connection has a basic trading capacity of 1 gigawatt, either a red or green token. In this step, you will be able to upgrade a connection on the board to increase its trading capacity to 4 gigawatt tokens. Pay the cost specified on your cheat sheet, and place the connection on one of the triple lines connecting your region with another one to identify this upgrade. If you build a connection to another player's region, you can also negotiate to share the costs of upgrading it. The last possible action of the second step is to close any power plants you have previously built, except for your coal or gas plants. The costs of closing plants are always equal to the original building costs, excluding any discounts. If you close a power plant, pay the costs, remove the power plant from the board, and move your production pawn the corresponding number of gigawatts back on the track. During the third step, each player has to do several actions. First, you have to roll the gigawatt demand dice. If you are in phase 1, use only 1 die. In phase 2, roll 2, and in phase 3, use the 3 dice. This will determine how much your gigawatt demand will increase. Then, if you have 1 or more wind plants, roll the wind die, and do the same with the sun die if you have any solar plants. These dice reflect the weather in your region and determine whether your sun and wind plants produce 50% or 100% of their gigawatt production this round. In this case, this region normally produces 36 gigawatts. Since it has a solar and a wind power plant, both dice will be rolled. The sun die shows a 100% face, so the production of the solar plant remains unchanged. However, the wind die shows one of the 50% faces, reducing the production of the wind power plant by half. That is, instead of producing 8 gigawatts, it will only produce 4 this round. Therefore, the total production of this region has to move from 36 to 32 gigawatts. To show this change, move back the weather pawn 4 spaces. Then, receive gigawatt tokens equal to the difference between your gigawatt production and your gigawatt demand. Green gigawatt tokens stand for a gigawatt surplus or overproduction, and the red ones for a gigawatt shortage or underproduction. The gigawatt production is determined by the position of your weather pawn. If your demand pawn is behind your production pawn, you will receive the difference in green cubes. On the other hand, if it is ahead, you will receive red cubes equal to the difference between both pawns. You must place the received gigawatt tokens on the T icon of your region. Next, receive income according to the position of your demand pawn. In this case, 36. Then, check the external markets, and if any of them runs out of gigawatt tokens, roll the external market die to replenish these regions. Roll the die for each empty region separately. Finally, check if you meet the winning conditions. This happens when your weather pawn is ahead or equal to the demand pawn, and you have no remaining coal or gas plants in your region. If you don't meet them, place back your weather pawn on top of your production pawn, in case they were not together. The fourth step consists in trading gigawatt tokens. You will trade your surplus or shortage of energy to avoid paying penalties. If you play well, this can even generate extra income. Both a surplus and shortage of energy are a problem for your region. Therefore, it is important that you not only buy energy when you have a shortage, but also sell it when you have a surplus. You can buy or sell one red or green gigawatt token to all the regions connected to yours. Remember that connections increase this number to 4. When trading gigawatt tokens with other players, you need to reach an agreement in order to decide the player that will pay and the amount of money. When trading with the external markets, you always earn 1 when selling 1 green gigawatt token or pay 1 when buying it. Red gigawatt tokens work the other way round. You always pay 1 when selling and earn 1 when buying. It is possible to buy a gigawatt token from one region and then sell it to another one. Sometimes trading with your connected regions is not possible, or simply not enough to solve your surplus or shortage problems. Instead of trading, you can always use your storage facilities to store green gigawatt tokens, or hydro and gas plants to store either red or green gigawatt tokens. Place the gigawatt tokens on the storage facility or power plant. They will stay there until the next round, when they will be used again for trading. When all players are done trading, you must remove from your region all the pairs of red and green gigawatt tokens available. These tokens go back to the supply. To conclude the step, players have to pay penalties. For each of the remaining red or green gigawatt tokens that were not removed or stored in your region, pay a penalty of 3. The last step is the closing auction. In order to win the game, you have to close all your coal and gas power plants. That's why, every round a number of closing rights for these types of plants become available through an auction. The starting player begins the auction by placing the first bid of at least 1, or passing. But remember that after passing, you cannot re-enter the auction. Then, going clockwise, every player chooses to bid at least 1 higher than the previous bid, or pass. Players are not allowed to bid higher than the money they have, taking into account any cost and penalties. This process continues until the number of players left in the auction equals the number of closing rights available. The number of closing rights changes according to the number of players. The players who won the auction must pay the amount of money offered as their last bid. If you obtain a closing right, you have to immediately close 1 coal or gas plant from your region. Remove the power plant from the board and move back the production pawn on the track, the corresponding number of gigawatts. If you want to close a gas plant with a red gigawatt token placed on it, you can always move the token to another of your gas or hydro plants. If that is not possible, you will have to immediately pay a penalty of 3 per each gigawatt token. The round ends once all these steps have been completed. The starting player token is then passed to the next player in clockwise direction, and you will be ready for the next round. The game ends when your weather pawn is ahead or equal to the demand pawn, and you have no remaining gas or coal plants in your region at the end of step 3. If there is a tie, all the tied players must store as many green gigawatt tokens as possible in their own region, using their storage facilities, gas, or hydro plants. The player with the least remaining not stored gigawatt tokens wins. If still tied, the player with the most money becomes the winner. If the tie persists, share the victory. There are also 2 possible ways in which a player may lose the game. The first one is when a player cannot pay their CO2 tax during step 1, or for the shortage or surplus of gigawatt tokens during step 4. If this happens, their region goes bankrupt, and from the following round on, it becomes an external market. Remove all the power plants, including the gigawatt tokens on them, and also the gigawatt tokens for which the player still can pay the penalty. The remaining gigawatt tokens and connections stay. However, the player does not participate anymore. A player will also lose the game if the gigawatt demand of their region ever exceeds 90. The player will lose immediately, even if they had met the winning condition during that turn. The theme of the game is implemented really well. Whenever you perform actions, they do make sense, and the way the weather pawn moves affecting the production is really clever. You can't deny that the art is eye-catching. Yvonne Mak has done a wonderful job illustrating this game, and we really like how everything blends so neatly. The shape of the demand pawns is quite unique, as well as the way the weather and production pawns merge together. The rules might seem a little bit long, but they are simple to understand and learn. All the actions in each step are somehow related, and the cheat sheets summarize all the trickiest concepts really well. We don't usually like games with player elimination as a mechanism, but in this case, if you don't squander all your money during your turn, and you try to save for future CO2 taxes, you don't really need to worry that much. All in all, Gigawatt is an interesting game that actually raises awareness about a topic we should all be concerned. It also manages to teach important lessons, such as that this is not a problem that only affects a region, and that it won't ever be solved without collaboration. What do you think about Gigawatt? We hope to read your comments, and remember, if you have enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to like it. To be up to date with our latest videos, subscribe to the channel and click the bell. We will continue playing in our next video.